I'm here with David Reis, the CEO of SeniorCare Development. David has built CCRCs, he's sold them, developed them, bought bonds of distressed CCRCs. He's probably done about everything you can in the CCRC world. And so I'm happy to have you here and shed some light on what's going on in the CCRC market. We know about 80% of the CCRC industry is not-for-profit. Are current market conditions forcing more long-term changes on the not-for-profits or on the for-profit developers?
Well, years ago in the nonprofit world, the Greystones or CRSAs of the world would find a group of individuals who knew nothing of the industry, who had no money, no financial backing, bootstrap them in business, put up 100% of the money, and build a CCRC. And I always thought that that was a ridiculous model, because you had a lot of people who really didn't have the years of experience that most of the for-profit guys had in the industry. I think that business is gone forever, and the no money, no experience nonprofits won't be financing facilities anytime soon. I think that the for-profit experienced players, eventually that market will come back.
And do you think what happened to Erickson Retirement Communities and their Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing, is that unique to Erickson, or is there some interesting aspect you've gleaned from that bankruptcy that you can use on your investments?
Well, I think hindsight is 20/20.
Always.
And I think here it really applies. But I don't think they'll ever be building a new campus with the same financial model they used, predominantly because whether you build 200 units, 400 units, 600 units, or 800 units, the Erickson model does not stabilize. So even at 800 units, they don't have any communities that are stable communities. And I think for most of us for-profit guys who are building smaller communities where you're forced to get a phase one to break even at 220, 250 units, and then a second phase could be profitable, the Erickson model is really pedal to the metal investing. It is legs don't fail me now. It is a scary way of doing development when you can't stop until you get over that 1,000-unit mark. So I don't think we'll be seeing a lot of developments like that moving forward.
And 1,000 units is that's large for anyone. There's been growing criticism of the use of the initial entrance fee deposits in CCRCs. What do you think? How much of these initial fees should be used to pay off the construction debt, or put in reserve, or some other use?
Well, I think that every state has a different rule on this, for this, and regulates it differently. But I think in general you have to balance off the putting money in reserves on one hand and using money to pay off construction debt on the other. And here you have a competing interest between the two of them, and you have to kind of give it it has to be finely tuned in my mind. Now here in the state of Florida, you can't release money till you're 70% occupied, which let's say is totally different than in the state of Connecticut, where you can't break ground until you sell 50% of the community. So all the laws, and then again there's let's say the state of Ohio, where you don't need any pre-sales. So every state varies so widely that it's really hard to see. I think that every developer has to figure out where their comfort level is on how much debt and how much leverage they think they really want their community to have. Going back 1 second to your question about Erickson, because I did want to mention one other item about their bankruptcy that I saw when I read over the bankruptcy auction transcript. I don't know if you've seen that yet. I'll send it to you. But other than KKR and Coastwood getting an $8 million, in effect, loser's fee, the thing that I've been most amazed with is that although the Erickson way talks about a 100% refundable plan, in effect, their residents, not only do they take all the resale risk of the apartments because they don't get refunded until a new person moves in, but they also take the risk of the resale price achieved. So in their residency agreement, it states that if they don't get, let's make believe you buy a unit for $250,000. If that unit resells at $200,000, you have the ability to either take the $200,000 or continue waiting until maybe you do get your $250,000. So in my mind, with the recession and with how skittish consumers are, it's not only the financial plan that matters, it's also the refundability to the residents, the risk that they're assuming. All those things are now playing into the marketplace as never before.
Well, is that the biggest risk or worry from a PR perspective for CCRC owners these days?
Well, that's a good question. And what I'm worried about is that there was a deal done in Pennsylvania, B'nai B'rith deal, which Madison Capital held the bonds to, which was originally developed by Greystone. That was the first time I'd ever seen that the residents were treated as unsecured creditors. Now, residents are unsecured creditors in a bankruptcy, but no judge has ever let residents take the financial hit and then in effect let the bondholders get as high a value as possible. So in the B'nai B'rith deal, the residents, they in effect got written down to zero, and Madison Capital got more on their bonds because they in effect handed over a community that had no debt on it to the buyers. And I think that's a very scary proposition for all the developers, because it gives really a black eye to the industry, where I think that the residents' entrance fees should really be sacred and let all the equity people and let all the debt holders take the risk. Is my view on that.
And those residents in that community are now suing everyone involved in that deal.
And rightfully so.
I understand.
And rightfully so.
You look at a lot of distressed properties. Is there a difference in your mind in investing in a distressed CCRC that's not for profit or for profit?
Well, the biggest difference I see is that if you, as a for-profit, if you buy a nonprofit, normally you have to get Attorney General's approval for the nonprofit selling to a for-profit. So a year or two ago, when I bought a nonprofit hospital in the south side of Chicago, we had to get the AG's approval, get a CON, and I also had to get Vatican approval. And we did all of that in about 4 months from start to finish. So clearly, where there's a will, there's a way. I don't think there's anything that really holds the for-profit from buying nonprofits' assets. In fact, I think we're going to see a lot of that, coming into the next year.
Mm-hmm. And do you think, with everything going on in the CCRC industry, do you think the industry's going to be heading more to the straight rental market, or do you think there's going to be some new variation on the rental entrance fee?
Well, I think that to build the full continuum of care, from independent living, assisted, and a nursing facility all on one campus, that infrastructure is so expensive that I don't think a rental is really ever going to work for a full CCRC campus. What I do think will happen is that instead of having a 90% refundable plan, 100% refundable plan, we'll go back to where it was decades ago, where there were more 50% return of capital plans or 0% refundable plans. And I think we're tilting more to that direction, because once again here, this way residents won't be in effect risking so much on a buy-in, and actuarially you could determine whether it's a 0% refundable, 50 or 90, actuarially from a development standpoint, that could still all work out and works out well for a developer. So I think that's the direction we're most likely going to in the immediate future.
Yeah, no, probably. And what is all this doing to the lending market for CCRCs? Are lenders pretty much staying on the sideline? I know they're viewing the entrance fees differently than they did maybe 5 years ago.
Right. Well, that's if you can find any lenders, right? So although there's some regional lenders still in business, there's lenders out there for stabilized product. All the big players, the Sovereigns, the HSH Nord banks, the Paribas, all those guys are gone from the industry, and I don't think they'll be coming back anytime soon. So I think to string together a large community of $150, $200 million, you really can't do that off of small regional players. So I think those are really going to, be halted for a while. You get people with stabilized assets, I think they will get them refinanced